Tonight, where are you listening from? Are you lying in bed, lights off, the world slowly fading into silence? Drifting somewhere between wakefulness and sleep? Welcome to Depths of Unknown, where, as you relax, we explore the deepest mysteries of our planet, the ocean, a world still filled with secrets no one fully understands. So close your eyes, take a slow breath, and let's descend into the unknown. The Appalachian Trail stretches 2,198 miles from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Mount Katahdin in Maine, passing through 14 states and traversing some of the most challenging, beautiful, and genuinely dangerous terrain in the eastern United States. It is the world's longest hiking-only footpath, and approximately 3 million people walk some portion of it each year. Of those 3 million, approximately 3,000 attempt a through hike, the full 2,198 miles in a single continuous journey, and of those 3,000, only approximately 1/4 actually complete it. The reasons for not completing a through hike are varied and well documented: physical injury, financial pressure, family emergencies, the psychological weight of 5 to 7 months of continuous exposure to discomfort, and the simple discovery that hiking every day for months is less enjoyable than it sounds before you begin. The trail's culture is rich with oral tradition, the informal knowledge passed from experienced hikers to newer ones, in shelter logbooks, in conversations at water sources, in the hostels and hiker-friendly establishments called trail towns that sustain the trail community along the route. This culture includes a body of specific, detailed, and sometimes contradictory advice about which sections of the trail require special preparation, which sections have killed hikers in ways that other sections do not, and which sections produce the highest rates of what the trail community calls zeros. Rest days taken not by choice but by necessity, days when a hiker cannot walk because something has gone wrong. But there is a subset of the trail's non-completion statistics, and a subset of the warnings that experienced hikers exchange with each other in the shelters and hostels along the route that belong to a different category, not the universal hardships that apply to every mile of the trail, but the specific hazards, the specific psychological and physical extremes, and the specific dangers that are concentrated in particular sections of the trail and that make those sections genuinely feared by people who have already proven they can handle the Appalachian Trail's baseline difficulty. These are the sections that even experienced hikers prepare for with special caution, that guidebooks describe with unusual specificity, and that produce the highest concentrations of bailouts, emergency rescues, and trail-related fatalities on a route that is not, across most of its length, particularly prone to any of these outcomes. Understanding why certain sections of the Appalachian Trail are genuinely difficult in ways that other sections are not, is understanding something about the geography and climate of the eastern United States, and about the relationship between human capability and natural conditions that the trail, in its most demanding sections, tests with exceptional rigor. The most technically demanding single section of the entire Appalachian Trail is the stretch across the presidential range of the White Mountains in New Hampshire, a stretch of approximately 20 miles that crosses the summits of several of the highest peaks in the northeastern United States, culminating in Mount Washington, whose summit elevation is 6,288 feet. The range is named for American presidents. The peaks bear the names Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe, Eisenhower, and others. But the naming is perhaps the most benign thing about them. The terrain itself is brutal by Appalachian standards, rocky, steep, and largely above the tree line for extended stretches, meaning that there is no shelter from wind or weather in the exposed ridge sections. The trail above treeline in the presidential range is marked by cairns, stacked rock piles, and painted blazes on the boulders, but in bad weather these become extremely difficult to follow, and the alpine zone above treeline in these mountains is genuinely hostile terrain that kills people who are inadequately prepared. But terrain is only part of the reason that the presidential range is feared. The reason it appears on every serious list of the trail's most dangerous sections is the weather. Mount Washington holds the record for the highest wind speed ever recorded at a surface weather station on Earth, outside of a tropical cyclone, 231 miles per hour, recorded on April 12, 1934. And while conditions that extreme are exceptional, the summit and upper ridges of the Presidential Range experience hurricane-force winds regularly throughout the year, including in summer. The summit can receive snow in every month of the calendar year. The temperature differential between the trailhead and the summit can exceed 30 degrees Fahrenheit on a single hiking day, and the rate at which conditions change on the exposed ridges is fast enough that hikers who leave the tree line in clear weather can encounter whiteout conditions within minutes. The Mount Washington Observatory, which has maintained continuous weather records at the summit since 1932, describes the summit's weather as among the worst in the world for any inhabited location. Hypothermia has killed experienced hikers on the Presidential Range in August. The trail through this section is marked with cairns and paint blazes, but in whiteout conditions these become impossible to follow, and hikers who leave the tree line in deteriorating conditions have a very limited window to retreat before retreat itself becomes dangerous. The Appalachian Mountain Club maintains huts throughout the White Mountains that provide emergency shelter and have saved lives, but the huts are spaced in ways that require commitment to crossing exposed terrain to reach them, and the weather can deteriorate faster than the distance between safe points can be covered on foot. The Mauerschuk Notch in Maine is widely described by thru hikers as the single hardest mile of the entire Appalachian Trail. It is not dangerous in the weather exposure sense of the Presidential Range, but its physical demands are unlike anything else on the trail, and it has produced more twisted ankles, knee injuries, and involuntary overnight stays than any comparable distance anywhere on the route. The Notch is a deep glacial boulder field, a geological feature formed by glacial action that left a narrow ravine between two ridges completely filled with enormous boulders of all sizes, ranging from roughly car-sized to house-sized, stacked in chaotic configurations that require not walking but climbing, crawling, and squeezing through gaps whose dimensions are sometimes barely large enough for a person carrying a backpack. Thru hikers traversing the Notch spent 2 to 4 hours covering 1 mile of trail, requiring the use of all 4 limbs for much of the distance, removing their packs to squeeze them through tight gaps separately, and making decisions at every move about which route through the boulders is traversable and which leads to a dead end. In spring and early summer, the lower chambers beneath the boulders, which are insulated from solar warming by the depth of the rock, retain ice and snow months after the surrounding forest has thawed, adding the complication of ice climbing to the already demanding boulder negotiation. The Notch is not frequently deadly, but it is frequently injurious, and the injuries it produces, the twisted ankles, the impact injuries from falls between boulders, the shoulder injuries from awkward pack-off maneuvers, have ended more through hikes than almost any other single feature on the trail. It is also followed immediately by Mahasuk Arm, the steep climb out of the Notch on the other side, which thrill hikers who have just spent 3 hours climbing through boulders must now negotiate with whatever physical resources the Notch left them. The combination of the Notch and the Arm represents a physical test whose severity is out of proportion to its distance, and whose consequences for anyone who enters the Notch already carrying an injury are potentially serious. This section of the Appalachian Trail, known as the roller coaster, approximately 14 miles in northern Virginia, between Bears Den and Snickers Gap, is feared for a reason that is psychologically rather than physically specific. The terrain itself is not objectively extreme by the standards of the Presidential Range or the Mahasuk Notch. The elevation changes are moderate, the footing is manageable, and the weather hazard is not exceptional. What makes the roller coaster one of the most dreaded sections for thru hikers is the pattern of its terrain, a relentless series of short, steep ascents and descents without any flat relief. The trail climbing and dropping repeatedly in a rhythm that produces cumulative exhaustion out of proportion to the total distance covered. Each individual climb is short enough to seem manageable and steep enough to require significant effort, and the descent that follows each climb provides no recovery time before the next climb begins. Through hikers who reach the roller coaster have typically been walking for approximately 500 miles from Georgia, and their knees, subjected to the repeated percussion of descents, are often at the point where the roller coaster's pattern of unrelenting downhill is not simply uncomfortable but actively painful and potentially injurious. The section is also encountered in what many hikers describe as the most psychologically difficult portion of the trail, the mid-Atlantic states, where the initial enthusiasm of Georgia and the Smokies has faded. The genuine wilderness character of New England is still hundreds of miles away, and the trail passes through terrain that is beautiful but less dramatic than what came before and what lies ahead. The mid-Atlantic section, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and the northern edge of West Virginia, is also notorious for its rocks. Pennsylvania, in particular, has earned a reputation among thru hikers as having some of the most foot-destroying rocky terrain on the entire trail. The kind of jagged quartzite and shale debris that punishes feet through the soles of hiking boots and turns ankle-twisting risk from occasional to constant. Thru hikers have a saying about Pennsylvania: it is where boots go to die. The roller coaster in Northern Virginia represents the psychological nadir for many thru hikers, the point at which the distance already walked feels insufficient comfort for the distance remaining, in a distance that many hikers find harder to maintain motivation through than either the trail's beginning or its end. The 100-mile wilderness in Maine, the final major stretch of the northbound Appalachian Trail before Mount Katahdin, is the longest section of the trail without a road crossing or resupply point, and it is genuinely remote in a way that most of the trail, which crosses roads and passes near towns with regularity, is not. The 100-mile wilderness spans approximately 100 miles of northern Maine forest and lake terrain, beginning at the town of Monson and ending at the base of Katahdin. The terrain is not the most technically demanding on the trail. It lacks the exposed ridgeline traversals of the Presidential Range and the extreme boulder navigation of the Mahoosuc's Notch, but its remoteness creates a specific category of risk that is not present elsewhere on the route. A hiker who suffers a serious injury in the 100-mile wilderness is potentially many days from the nearest trailhead, in terrain that is difficult to traverse quickly, and in conditions that may not allow helicopter extraction at the specific location of the injury. The remoteness of the 100-mile wilderness also means that the section is genuinely unpopulated. There are no hostels, no restaurants, no towns, and no infrastructure of any kind except the trail itself and a handful of lean-to shelters. For a continuous stretch that would take even a fit thru hiker 4 to 7 days to complete. Hikers who enter without adequate food resupply or whose caloric calculations underestimated the demands of the terrain can find themselves significantly underfueled in a location where there is no possibility of resupply. The section is also encountered late in the thru hiking season, typically in late September and October for northbound hikers who started in Georgia in March or April. And the weather of northern Maine in late September is not the weather of the mid-Atlantic in June. It can snow, temperatures can drop below freezing at night, and the daylight hours are shorter, reducing the time available for safe progress each day. The physical condition of thru hikers who reach the 100-mile wilderness is itself a risk factor. These are people who have been walking for approximately 5 months and 2,100 miles, whose caloric deficit, accumulated joint damage, and physical fatigue have been building for the entire journey, and who are now asked to complete the most remote section of the trail in deteriorating weather, with the psychological weight of proximity to the end compressing their judgment. The southern terminus section of the trail, the first 200 miles from Springer Mountain in Georgia through North Carolina and into Tennessee, including the crossing of the Great Smoky Mountains, is not avoided by experienced hikers in the same way that the Presidential Range or the 100-mile wilderness are avoided, but it produces by far the highest concentration of early thru-hike failures of any section of the route, and for reasons that are instructive about the gap between how the trail appears in planning and how it feels in execution. The Southern Appalachians are not gentle. The first 100 miles out of Springer Mountain include significant elevation gain and loss on terrain that is more technically demanding than the trail's reputation for accessibility suggests. And this combination of unexpected difficulty with the physical condition of hikers who began the trail 3 to 5 days ago, hikers who have not yet built the conditioning that the trail demands, and who may be carrying too much weight in gear that has not yet been filtered by the experience of carrying it every day, produces injury rates in the first 50 miles that exceed those of almost any other comparable stretch. The Great Smoky Mountains section specifically adds bear activity, crowded shelters where permits are required and space is limited, and weather that can produce thunderstorms, ice, and deep cold in March and April when most northbound thru hikers pass through. The shelters in the Smokies, the enclosed 3-sided lean-to structures that are the standard overnight accommodation along the trail, are required camping in the national park, and in peak season they can be full, leaving late arrivals to camp in designated camping areas in conditions that may not match what their research suggested. The black bear population in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is among the densest in the eastern United States, and encounters between hikers and bears in the Smokies require the use of bear cables and careful food storage protocols that new hikers, still learning the routine of trail life, sometimes execute inadequately. More than half of all Appalachian Trail thru hike failures occur in Georgia and North Carolina. The section that appears on maps as the beginning is in some respects the most ruthless filter on the entire route, demanding the most from hikers who are least prepared to meet the demand. What these sections share: the Presidential Range, the Mahus Notch, the roller coaster, the 100-mile wilderness. The southern terminus is not a single quality, but a convergence of qualities that the Appalachian Trail's overall character distributes unevenly. The trail is 2,198 miles long, and across most of those miles, it is genuinely accessible and genuinely beautiful. The kind of walking that does what the trail supporters have always claimed it does, providing immersion in natural landscape and physical challenge at a level that is demanding but not overwhelming for reasonably fit and well-prepared hikers. But the sections that experienced hikers avoid, prepare for specifically, and discuss with unusual seriousness are the sections where one or more of the trail's variables, weather exposure, technical terrain, physical accumulation, psychological pressure, remoteness, reaches a level that separates them from the rest of the route and places them in a different category of challenge. The Appalachian Trail is a managed wilderness experience whose management is invisible in normal conditions and becomes very visible in abnormal ones. The sections that are feared are the sections where the conditions become abnormal more reliably than elsewhere, where the gap between the trail as a recreational experience and the trail as a serious wilderness environment is smallest, and where the consequences of under-preparation or bad luck are most direct. They are not avoided because they are not worth hiking. Many of the trail's most devoted hikers speak of the Presidential Range, the Mahouch Notch, and the 100-mile wilderness with a reverence that is inseparable from the fear those sections inspire, the reverence that comes from having been tested by something that is genuinely indifferent to the outcome. The trail at those points is not a managed outdoor recreation facility. It is terrain that has been doing what it does for millions of years, long before human beings developed the equipment and technique to traverse it, and that will continue doing what it does long after the white blazes painted on trees and rocks have faded. The hikers who survive those sections intact, who cross the Presidential Range in deteriorating weather and reach the next hut before hypothermia sets in, who negotiate the Mahouch Notch without the ankle injury that ends a thru hike, who complete the 100-mile wilderness in late October with enough calories and daylight and physical reserves to reach Katahdina, carry something from those experiences that no other section of the trail provides in the same form. They carry the knowledge of what they are capable of when the trail stops accommodating them. They are approached with exceptional seriousness because they deserve exceptional seriousness, because the trail in those places is not a path through nature, but nature itself, doing what it does without accommodation for the preferences or safety of those passing through. and because the distance between adequate preparation and inadequate preparation in those places is measured not in comfort or inconvenience, but in outcomes that are not reversible.